That's what the word church means. You are church, a people called out of darkness into God's wonderful light. Ecclesia, you've been called out to proclaim the goodness of God. So I think about something else that happened to me. This challenge has helped make me a champion too. My eyes. Some time ago, I developed this disease in my eyes. It's called a posterior vitreous detachment. What happens is this vitreous on the back of your eyeball towards your retina detaches as you grow older in some people, and it causes floaters, and they all just float around in there. And so that when you move your eye, all the floaters go too. I don't know if you've ever seen one of these snowball things. You got a Christmas scene, you shake it up and the snow starts falling. It's kind of like that with your eyes. When you move your eyes, stuff just kind of floats around in there. They're floaters. Now, I have good eyesight, but it's hard to see everything exactly the way you want to see it when you got these floaters floating around. So I found a doctor who lasers them. And I went to that doctor and I was having them lasered. And the doctor said something I'll never forget. He actually kind of yelled at me. He said, instead of focusing on the floaters, why don't you just focus on what you can see? And I thought to myself, well, wait a minute, I've come here to have him help me, and now he's yelling at me. But you know what? What he said was absolutely correct. I was kind of in self-pity because of all these floaters. He wasn't able to take them all away. I still have them, even today. But now, my challenges are making me a champion in terms of my attitude. Instead of just being in self-pity and focusing on my sickness, I look at the world. Yeah, they're still there, but I don't pay attention to them. I see the ocean and the stars and the flowers and the people. I don't let the afflictions and the challenges obscure my vision. And so some of you have some sicknesses, diseases, hardships in your life. Don't let them obscure your vision. Speaking of vision, I grew up in Feeding Hills, Massachusetts. Little small town south of Springfield, right on the Connecticut border. Our claim to fame is a woman, and it's right in the town square. There's a statue of her. Her name is Anne Sullivan. She was born in Feeding Hills, Massachusetts. You've probably heard of her because she taught Helen Keller. Helen Keller was blind and deaf, and Anne Sullivan was her teacher who taught her language. How, talk about a challenge, how do you teach a blind and deaf person how to speak, how to communicate? So she did it. There was a breakthrough with using water. She finally broke through with the language. And Helen Keller, talk about facing her challenge. Helen Keller, even though she was blind and deaf, she wrote and published 12 books and many articles. Her challenges made her a champion. She didn't let her disablement and her, quote, handicap, her affliction of her eyes or her ears stop her. God had put a gift in her, and she used that gift. In one of her articles, it was called 3 Days to See, she said this, Helen Keller did, "I who am blind can give one hint to those of you who can see. Use your eyes as if tomorrow you would be stricken blind." In other words, what was Helen Keller saying? She was saying, appreciate the fact that you can see. Look at life. Touch a rose. Smell the scent. Savor your life. And see, these are people with a different spirit. They don't just let their afflictions and their, quote, handicaps bring them down. They rise above. They face their challenges. They let the challenges stretch them and even make them better. Now, even though I've had panic attacks, I don't let it stop me. I haven't become a minister because of the panic attacks, but in spite of them, I still continue on. Yes, I get nervous when I'm in front of hundreds and thousands of people, but I don't let it stop me. And don't let your disablement stop you either. You can do it. You can go forward. I remember the story about my dad. You know, my dad taught me so much about attitude, and how your challenges can make you a champion. My dad was in the Seabees in the Second World War. He was in the U.S. Navy. The Seabees are a building group. They are into construction. And they have a motto, and their motto is this, I love this, can do. Can do. That's what I'm talking about here. Have a different spirit. Not, I can't do it, but I can do it. I can face my challenges. I can overcome the adversities. And the rest of the motto goes like this, I love this. The difficult we do now, the impossible takes a little longer. And I think that's great. So, talk about vision. My dad had problems with his eyes too, and the problem that he had was this. He was probably 20 years old, 1920. He's in the Second World War. He's on board one of these big ships, and they're working on some molten metal, and as they're working on it, my dad's passing by, and a piece flies out, flies right in his eye. Totally healthy eye until that thing hit his eye, seared his pupil shut. He was honorably discharged from the Navy. Best laser surgeons tried to open up the eye. They couldn't do it. So what's my dad going to do? Go into self-pity? No. He had that different spirit. Remember, he was a Seabee, can do. The hard things we do now, the impossible takes a little longer. Well, Dad ended up continuing to use his talent as a carpenter. He continued as a carpenter when he got out of the military, and he raised a family, got married, raised 3 children. I'm the only boy, the third, the youngest. And I used to work with him. And I remember working with Dad. He would build these beautiful houses, and he would build room additions. He was a master craftsman. I've seen him build tabernacles and lecterns and altars with his hands. And I know because I used to work with him. And I remember one time asking Dad, what happened to your eye? And he told me the story about how that piece of metal flew in there. And I had to ask him because he never, ever complained about his eye. And I'm so proud of him because he became a carpenter with one eye. And not just a carpenter, as I said, a master craftsman. Did amazing work. I was so proud of him. And he taught me so much about challenges. He taught me so much about adversity. He taught me so much about attitude in the midst of it all. So I think about a woman. One time I was at a church and I was preaching, and I noticed a woman in a wheelchair sitting in the front pew. And I had seen her earlier in the parish office. She worked in the parish office. She was very involved. So I went over to her and I thanked her for coming to the mission to hear me speak. And I said, you're in a wheelchair. What happened to you? And she said, well, when my mother was pregnant with me, she had some type of a disease, and I caught that disease, and I was born disabled. But my mother taught me something, and she said, don't ever get into self-pity, always be positive. And she said, I'm very involved. And I said, well, thank you so much for sharing that story, because you can see how active you are and how happy you are. And it's the same in everybody's life. For whatever reason, we all have adversity, whether it be a physical ailment, as I've been talking about, whether it be relationship problems or challenges of many different and varied types. And you can't let them overcome you. You have to be positive, have that different spirit. Be strong in the Lord in the power of his might. And you can face your adversities. One time I was preaching in New York, and I was giving a parish mission there, and I preached the best I could, and the mission ended, and the service ended, and I'm in the back shaking hands with people. And this young man came up to me, and I'll never forget, and he said, Father Cedric, he said, I've been watching you on TV. He said, I just got out of prison. And if you don't know this, my programs through TBN, Trinity Broadcasting Network, have been going into the prisons for many years now. And many people watch, and it's wonderful to be reaching out into the walls of the prison. So he said, I just got out of prison, and he said, you sent me a book called Challenges Make Champions. That's a book that I wrote talking about facing your adversities, facing your challenges, facing your hardships, and how you can do it, and you can overcome, and your challenges can make you a champion. So he said, I read that book, and he said, Father, it really touched my life. Then he rolled up his sleeve, and I'll never forget this. There, tattooed on his arm, was the title of that book, Challenges Make Champions. And you know what that tells me about that young man? In prison, facing those hardships, facing that adversity, he made a decision, just like Joshua made the decision when he came into the promised land. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Joshua and Caleb, a different spirit. Well, he made a decision that his challenges weren't going to defeat him. His challenges were going to make him a champion. And I want that to be tattooed, not on your arm, but in your heart, that your challenges can make you a champion in terms of your attitude, in terms of your accomplishments, and that you can do it. Be strong. God lives within you. You're not the way the rest of the world is. You have a different spirit. So, wanted to leave you with a few sayings that I really love. Life isn't about waiting for the storms to stop. It's about learning to dance in the rain. A ship in a harbor is safe, but we were made for the wide open ocean. We can't direct the wind, but we can adjust the sails. We can't control the waves, but we can learn how to surf. Don't just live, live with passion. I hope you like the preaching about becoming a champion, that your challenges can actually stretch you. Got a letter from a woman. She said, I've been away from the church for 35 years, and I returned to church after watching your program because what you preach is so positive and encouraging. I love that. That's what I'm trying to do. Not just bring people back to church, I'm trying to give them a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. I want them to be filled with the Holy Spirit. And I can do this. I can reach out on television because it is expensive. I can do it because of my partners, because of my benefactors, because of those of you who donate, you write me. So please check out my website. You'll really like it. And write me if you would, and if you make a donation, I will send you, for any donation, if you become a partner, I'll send you my book, Challenges Make Champions. You will love this book. It'll help you to face your challenges. It'll stretch you. You will be more than a conqueror through Christ. So again, visit my website. You'll find all kinds of fun things to do on the website. And also, if you would, write me. Many of you write me by mail. I really appreciate that. And then you can also call that number. Please make a donation. Please support me so that I can continue to preach the gospel everywhere. Thank you, thank you, thank you in advance. If you're already a partner, know that I'm praying for you, and I really appreciate you. Don't just live, live with passion.
Don't just live, live passionately. Jesus came to bring us abundant life, a life filled with joy, hope, and purpose. For over a decade, Father Cedric has been sharing the life-changing message of hope with people around the world. As a priest with a vow of poverty, Father Cedric's programs and resources are created with one purpose in mind: to change lives. Would you consider calling and giving today? It's only because of generous people like you who can give we are able to reach multitudes every day. We hear life-changing testimonies from people who watch us on television. As always, we treasure the support of our partners. As a priest with a vow of poverty, you can know that 100% of your donation will go directly toward producing and airing Live with Passion. To partner with us, call 844-FATHER-C, that's 844-328-4372, or go to fathercedric.org. Write us at Father Cedric Ministries, 430 Bunker Hill Road, Houston, Texas, 77024. Thank you.